Drunvalo, tell me a little bit about this ET visitation and when you think this might come. Is it around 2012?
Well, okay, let me talk about that for just a second before we go into that. The idea that December 21st, 2012 is when this will happen, according to the Mayans, that's the least likely day.
Least likely.
It's not going to happen on that day. They said forget it. What they call, they have what is called a window of time, and the name they give to it is the end of time. It's a window that's about 7 or 8 years long. And this window, this time, I believe, as I understand what they had to tell me, began on October 24th, 2007, and it ends sometime in 2015.
So that's a pretty good window.
Yeah, and all they're willing to say is that somewhere in that window is when it's going to happen. They will not say for sure because I don't think they know exactly precisely the time, because it is when the Earth actually makes its move. Is all they can say is it's sometime in there.
But they see the signs, don't they?
Yeah, and that date of October 24th, 2007 is a very interesting date. That is the day when that comet came into the solar system called Comet Hermes,
mm-hmm.
and then it blew up, and it started expanding into a big blue sphere, and it literally became bigger than the sun. It's now registered as the largest object ever observed in our solar system in history, and it did that on October 24th, 2007. Now, the Hopi prophecy that you were talking about, they have a prophecy that happened about 200 years ago, and it's called the Blue Star Prophecy.
Well, this one had a blue tail.
It turned, yes, but it turned into a blue sphere.
Yes.
Bigger than the sun.
Yeah.
And so the Hopi now believe that was the Blue Star Prophecy, and the Mayans believe that is the moment when the end of time began.
The clock is.
And so
ticking.
we're in it. And so when it'll happen, I don't think they're going to prophesize a certain day. In fact, they told me no, that it just is sometime in here, and that's all they can say.
When this happens, as Edgar Cayce has predicted in terms of Earth changes, will we see massive upheaval in that? We're already seeing, ice melting in the Arctic.
Oh yeah,
we're seeing it. We're seeing shifts everywhere.
And look out for Ross's shelf.
Yeah, these things break off, and
it's cracking. Holes are forming all over it, and then forming lakes that are going all the way down to the bottom where you can see the water running, and then coming back up and forming bigger ones. The scientists I talk to that are working down there say this thing's going to go.
There are island nations now that can't sustain an increase in ocean sea levels.
Well, almost all the islands most of them are going to have a real problem because the water rises up over the top of their freshwater system, and the salt goes in and invades their freshwater, and that's it. It's over.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. They have to abandon that whole region.
And then you also have the coral reefs that are all around them that are dying. This is another huge problem that is going on, and a lot of people are not aware because when they figured it out, they became very quiet about it after that. But the environmental scientists were quiet for years because the amount of carbon dioxide that we have been emitting into the atmosphere, we should have had problems, far worse problems, years and years ago, but we didn't, because the carbon dioxide was somehow disappearing. They didn't know where it went. And it was about 3 years ago they figured it out. It has been absorbed into the oceans. And at first they thought, oh, good, we found out where it is. And then there was this really somber attitude that came out after that when they figured out exactly what it meant. Right now, the carbon dioxide levels in our oceans are what they were 100 million years ago.
Okay, how can that be?
It's just fact. They've absorbed enough carbon dioxide that they now have the same levels that they were 100 million years ago. And what this means is that most of the life that's in our oceans now is going to die. The things that were there 100 million years ago, like sharks, etc., will make it through. And then something else a new kind of ocean will evolve out of all of this.
And maybe new species, maybe not.
Probably something that likes carbon dioxide, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we never. That was a huge shock to everybody I knew that was involved in this. That's where it was going. They had no idea, and that's a large of the things. That's a big problem that's causing the coral reefs to die. I mean, we're going to have over 80% of all the coral reefs in the world will be gone in our lifetime.
I've got a regular guest who comes on the program, Robert Felix, and he says we're in the beginning stages of an ice age. What do you think?
I say absolutely.
You do? Okay.
In fact, I could go into great detail if you want me to.
Yeah, please. You know, he's a rebel, and there aren't a lot of scientists and climatologists out there who would agree with him.
We know the cycle. We know it very well. And it's all been presented at the United Nations, and they just freak out and will not look at it. But Dr. John Hamaker was the primary person who headed all of this. And he went around to all the ancient lake beds all over the world and took these core samples out of the ancient lake beds. And there you can just see it. There is about roughly 90,000 years with no pollen, followed by about 10,000 years with pollen, followed by 90,000 years. It's an average. It's about the warm period is about 8 to 12,000 years, and the ice ages are that 90,000 years is an average. They can go up to 120,000 years, but that cycle has been going on for at least 250 million years that he figured out, and other people have taken it back over 500 million years, and so and we've had a warm period for over 10,000 years, so an ice age would come anyway, even if there were no human beings on Earth.
Right. The cycle.
It's a cycle, but we're adding to it, so we've moved it up. Nobody's going to know how many years. It maybe it's 500 years or 1,000 years, but we've moved it up closer. And what that cycle is based on is one word: minerals. That's it. Period. 100%. Well, not counting the sun, which is another
factor.
That's a whole other subject. But if you're only looking at the Earth, it's minerals, because what John Hamaker found is that when the minerals, we'll start at this part of the cycle where we are in right now today, when the minerals run out, and that's what's been going on for 20, 25, 30 years, a little bit, actually since about 1940 when the big fire happened in Alaska, at 41 I think it was. And the minerals run out, and then what happens is the trees and the plants and the organic structure all begins to get sick and die, and then the forest fires begin. Mm-hmm. And every acre of trees has 50,000 tons of carbon dioxide in it, and that begins to create the global warming pattern that we're experiencing right now. And then it keeps going until there's this period, and this is all scientifically figured out. It's not just me saying this. There's about a 20-year period where the weather goes crazy. It's just what it's been doing for the last 20 years.
Right. I mean, we're in we seem to be in a lull right now.
Well,
but I don't know if that's going to last.
It could be anything. I mean, the El Nino, when it goes, you read in the environmental books, if it happens once, it changes the world's weather patterns. But it might take 20, 30 years for it to happen. It's happened in the last 12 out of the last 13 years. So, I mean, whatever your weather is, who knows what it would be, assuming that none of these other things took place.
Though I agree with you, talking about the sun as a program all by itself.
Oh, yeah.
Let me ask you this. We are in one of the biggest times of minimum sunspots. They're not there.
I know. It's really strange.
It's got to have an effect as we get to 2012. I mean, it's almost as if they truly understood all this. It's all related, isn't it?
Well, yeah, the sunspots are really important, and this may have to do with why the Earth's magnetic poles are reversing, too. And that is directly connected to that whole thing. I mean, everything is connected to everything. In fact, if you knew what I knew about sacred geometry and the planets and the orbits and everything, it's unbelievable. It's like people look at the moon and they say, well, it's just it's a 27 point something days. It's a never ending cycle, and it's female, and it is very hard to calculate in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
That's been done. But did you know that is precisely the day of the sun? The sun rotates in exactly 27 point something things exactly the same as the moon.
Yeah.
And in the geometry of the human body, when we were unfolding these electromagnetic fields around the human body, one of the first things we discovered was that there's